Guys, hope you all are doing good. This is Pratishta, your IELTS trainer. And this session, we are going to focus on reading a little bit more than anything else. So we have already seen a few tips and tricks that we can use during our reading. But in this one, we will read an original passage. I know we have done it before, but this time as well, we will go ahead and read a passage and try to figure out how to understand it. So let me first share the screen with what is expected. This is an introduction to IELTS reading passage analysis. In this session, we will explore techniques to analyze IELTS reading passage effectively. We will discuss strategies for approaching different kinds of questions. We will engage in reading practice to improve our comprehension and learn how to manage time effectively during the test, because that's the major thing. So what is IELTS reading? So IELTS reading is going to contain 3 sections. You have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions. The passages will come from a lot of sources, which will include your academics, journals, magazines, and books. All these areas, it could be report as well. Then there are different question types that assesses various reading skills, such as understanding details. You need to understand details. You need to understand the main idea and identify any kinds of opinions or attitudes, right? So you have, again, multiple choice questions, true, false, and not given, where the information is not given in the entire passage type of questions. Matching, so match paragraphs to the headings, these kind of questions. There could be a sentence and it would tell you that can you match this particular sentence where you can find this information to the passage. Then you have sentence completion. So you need to fill in the words with the sentence. Then there is summary, note, and table completion. And that's pretty much it. Then you have strategies for reading comprehension, right? What are the different strategies? You need to skim through. We have discussed this, but just giving you a brief once again, we need to skim the passage first, read the questions, right? Question reading before is important because it will just give you an idea on about what to expect. You need to focus on keywords, right? Keywords are super important. Use the context, right? So use these context around your keywords to understand what meaning they hold. And do not overanalyze, do not overthink about these things. Don't get stuck where there's complex information. Just focus on understanding the overall view. And that is why vocabulary in context is super important. Vocabulary in context is something that we have discussed before as well. How do you manage time in IELTS, basically? So you need to allocate time for each passage, means you need to spend just 20 minutes on each passage because you have in total 60 minutes, right? So 20 minutes each passage because you have 3 passages. Don't spend too long on one question. Try to finish all the questions as fast as possible. Answer every question, right? Make sure you're not leaving it. Even if you don't know the answer, just make sure that you're not leaving it because sometimes you can guess it and that guess can turn out to be just good, right? And then review your answers. If you're done early, take all the time to review your answers. So there are some common mistakes that you can avoid. Not understanding the question type. Make sure, first of all, you're understanding what kind of question it is, right? What it is asking. So read the question really properly, right? Do not, second is overlooking synonyms. So instead of just focusing on the exact word, try to look for synonyms, try to look for what it is trying to say in general. Misinterpreting true, false, not given. So when you need to figure out that is the information not given or is the information false, that is something that you really need to do, right? Then don't spend too much time on difficult words, right? If you don't know a word, try to use the context, right, to make out its meaning, but don't spend too much time on it. And then don't focus just on details. Also try to focus on the overall structure, the context, and all of those things. Don't just focus, don't go deep into the details. What we will do today is we will skim and scan. I will give you a passage. We will just skim and scan. So it will be a faster process. But while I read, you would understand, how this process is working. So, tips for improving reading skills, I would just give it to you now, is reading a variety of texts, right? You need to focus on speed reading. Again, the key here is speed reading. Start reading slowly, but eventually you need to build your speed, right? Today we will practice speed reading. Expand your vocab. Again, the more vocabulary you know, the less time you will spend on figuring out the meaning, and practice under time conditions. So make sure that you are practicing, you are timing yourself and practicing under that. So let me share my screen on the reading comprehension passage. Right. So we are going to read this. The man who invented synthetic dyes. William Henry Perkins was born on March 12, 1838, in London, England. As a boy, Perkins' curiosity prompted early interest in the arts, science, photography, and engineering, but it was a chance stumbling upon a rundown yet functional laboratory in his late grandfather's home that solidified the young man's enthusiasm for chemistry. So, we are talking about his youth. As a student at the City of London School, Perkin became immersed in the study of chemistry. His talent and devotion to the subject were perceived by his teacher, Thomas Hall, who encouraged him to attend a series of lectures given by the scientist Michael Faraday at Royal Institution. Those speeches fired the young chemist's enthusiasm further, and he later went on to attend the Royal College of Chemistry, which he entered at the age of 15. So, college. This is his college life. At the times of Perkins' enrollment, the Royal College of Chemistry was headed by the German chemist August Hoffmann. Perkins' scientific gifts soon caught Hoffmann's attention, and within 2 years, he became Hoffmann's youngest assistant, right? So he became an assistant here. Not long after that, Perkins made the scientific breakthrough that would bring him both fame and fortune. So he invented something. So also, let me write invention. Scientific breakthrough is almost like he invented something or he curated a theory or something. At the time, quinine was the only viable medical treatment for malaria, right? The drug is derived from the bark of cinconcha tree native to South America, and by 1856, demand for the drug was surpassing the available supply. Thus, when Hoffmann made some passing comments about the desirability of synthetic substitute for quinine, it was surprising that his star pupil was moved to take up the challenge. So he was trying to devise a cure for malaria. During his vacation in 1856, Perkins spent his time in the lab on the top floor of his family's house. He was attempted to manufacture quinine from aniline, an inexpensive and readily available coal tar waste product. Despite his best efforts, however, he did not end up with quinine. So it was his failure, right? So we can talk about his failure here, first failure. Instead, he produced a mysterious dark sludge. Luckily, Perkins' scientific training and nature prompted him to investigate the substance further. Incorporating potassium dichromate and alcohol into the aniline at various stages of the experimental process, he finally produced a deep purple solution. And proving the truth of the famous scientific Louis Pasteur's words, chance favors only the prepare mind, Perkins saw the potential of this unexpected find. So it was some sort of unexpected discovery that he did. Okay. Historically, textile dyes were made from such natural sources as plants and animal excretions. Some of these, such as the glandular mucus of snails, were difficult to obtain and outrageously expensive. Right? So dyes were obtained from snails and it was expensive. Indeed, the purple color extracted from snail was once so costly that in society at that time only the rich could afford it. So purple color. So he also made something which resulted in purple color. And then we are also talking about purple was equivalent to rich. Further, natural dyes tended to be muddy in hue and faded quickly. It was against this backdrop that Perkins' discovery was made. Perkins quickly grasped at that his purple solution could be used to color fabric, thus making it the world's first synthetic dye. Right? So it was his first synthetic dye. So he discovered here. Realizing the importance of this breakthrough, he lost no time in patenting it. So he patented, he like put his name on it. But perhaps the most fascinating of all, Perkins' reaction to his find was his nearly instant recognition that the new dye had commercial possibilities. Perkin originally named his dye Tyrian purple, but it later became commonly known as the mauve. So, the mauve color, from the French for the plant used to make the color violet. He asked advice of Scottish dye works owner Robert Puller, who assured him that manufacturing the dye would be well worth if the color remained fast, that it would not fade, and the cost was relatively low. So, fast and low cost. So, over the fierce objection of his mentor Hoffman, he left college to give birth to the modern chemical industry. With the help of his father and brother, Perkin set up a factory not far from London. So, factory utilizing the cheap and plentiful coal tar that was an almost unlimited byproduct of London's gas street lighting, the dye works began producing the world's first synthetically dye material in 1857. So it was made here. The company received a commercial boost from the Empress Eugenie of France when she decided the new color flattered her. Very soon, mauve was necessary shade for all the fashionable ladies in the country, so it came into fashion. Not to be outdone, England's Queen Victoria also appeared in public wearing a mauve gown, thus making it all the rage in England as well. The dye was bold and fast, and the public clamored for more. Perkin went back to the drawing board. Although Perkins' fame was achieved and fortune assured by his first discovery, the chemist continued his research. Among other dyes were developed and introduced were aniline red, aniline black, and in the late 1860s, Perkins green. It is important to note that Perkins' synthetic dye discoveries had outcomes far beyond the merely decorative. So it was beyond decorative. It was not just dyes for clothes. These dyes also became vital to medical research in many ways. So medical importance. And then he's talking also about other colors. For instance, they were used to stain previously invisible microbes and bacteria. So stain microbes, allowing research to identify such bacilli as tuberculosis, cholera, and anthrax. Artificial dye continue to play a crucial role today, and in what would have been particularly pleasing to Perkin, their current use in the search for a vaccine against malaria. Right, so this continued search is still there. Now it was pretty easy. We have all the information. We read it real quickly, right? There were words that were tough, but again, we could understand the overall meaning of the text, and that is what is important, right? So now you have true, false, and not given. Michael Faraday was the first person to recognize Perkins' ability as a student of chemistry. So let's see if Michael Faraday is mentioned, right? And he was the first person to recognize. So I did see Michael Faraday here. So he was not really, he just went to the lectures, right? He was not the first person to recognize his ability. It was someone else. So it is false. Michael Faraday suggested Perkins should enroll in the Royal College of Chemistry. So was it Michael Faraday who suggested he should enroll? Let's see. So let's search for Royal Institution. And he later went in the Royal College of Chemistry. So nobody really forced him. It's just that he did it himself. So again, it's false. Perkin employed August Hoffman as his assistant. So did Perkin employ August Hoffman as his assistant? So let's see where August Hoffman is talked about. Here. It was headed and Perkin was the assistant. So again, this information is false. Perkin was still young when he made the discovery that made him rich and famous. So again, we don't know he was young or what he was when he was rich and famous. So that information about him being rich and famous is not really given, right? So it is not given. The tree from which quinine was derived only grew in South America. So let's see where they talk about quinine. Quinine was the only viable native to South America. Yes, so it was native to South America, right? So it was only available in South America. So it's true. Perkin hoped to manufacture a drug from a coal tar waste product. So yes, he was hoping to manufacture a drug, which was tannin, I guess, from coal tar waste product. So this is true as well. Perkin was inspired by the discovery of the famous scientist Louis Pasteur. So I am not sure where we read about Louis Pasteur, but let us quickly skim for Louis Pasteur. So here, and proving the truth of the famous scientist, Perkin saw the potential. So again, it was not really inspired by the discoveries, it was just the name of it, right? So he was not inspired by the discoveries. So this is false. And to be honest, this is exactly how you do speed reading and skimming and scanning and really focusing on the keywords. So with that being said, it needs a little bit of more practice to reach to that level, right? And basically, that's pretty much it. Today, we learned some strategies for IELTS reading passage. We discussed some common question types and techniques that are used to answer them, right? And we engaged in a reading practice to speed read stuff, right? And that is pretty much it. I would suggest you to go ahead and complete a reading practice test for yourself. Focus on fast reading, focus on skimming and scanning. Review your answers after that, and also identify the areas which you find difficult. Make sure you're also summarizing a little bit. If you remember in the previous session, we also talked about summarizing. Always summarize, it makes everything so smooth and fast. So summarize stuff, and I think that is pretty much for today. If you have any doubts, you can bring that up, and I will see you in the next session.